All right, 232-1542. Remember that number as we move on into the conversation. And we're talking about, well, this weekend was an especially bloody weekend in Chicago. And it's very unfortunate. You've had a dozen people die, another 62 wounded as just shootings running rampant in the city of Chicago. And they're hitting highs that they have not seen in decades in that area. And so as all this election talk is going on across the country, because you have all these you have all of these elections going on today in places such as Ohio and also, let's see, Ohio, Michigan, Kansas, and Missouri. Well, there's another area in Chicago that you have the mayor's race is heating up now as their mayor, Rahm Emanuel, is taking some heavy criticism over all these shootings that have been happening under his watch.
Yeah, well, the crime is completely out of control there, as it is in many cities that are run by Democrats. Mm-hmm. Got some statistics about that are quite disturbing. But what I found to be very, I guess, entertaining is that now, we've got all these protests. Okay, that's the new thing to do now. It's cool to go on a protest, but you never see anybody protesting liberals. All right, it's just, you don't see it because it's normally the liberals that organize the protests.
Right.
Well, now they're protesting Rahm Emanuel. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are big protests all over Chicago because finally these people are fed up and they're realizing that the way that they are running that city is definitely not working. Yeah. And the gun control that they have in place is definitely not working. And so it kind of gives me a little hope for the future, Brandon, that eventually some people do come to their senses because, this place has been a mess for quite a while and they've remained supportive of him. Now, I think that it's gotten so bad for such a long time that the citizens of Chicago are saying, look, we don't care what your policies are, what political affiliation you have, what party you're affiliated with. What you're doing is stupid, and this is a disaster here.
Well, but for some people in some of these larger cities, all they know is one-party rule. When I think of Chicago, I also think about New Orleans. And I think about these are two cities that are having some of the worst crime epidemics across the country, and they also have been run by one-party Democrat rule for
a long time.
Decades.
For decades. That's exactly right. Well, you mentioned New Orleans. New Orleans has got 100 murders so far this year, and they are on pace to do 170 murders. And to give you a little bit of background with Chicago, so far in 2018 has recorded 318 murders. Last year was 428. The year before was 426, with an average of 4,000 victims being shot. Just to give you an example right there. So you're looking at about a little bit more than 10% of all of those shooting victims are murder victims. They die. The gun homicide rate from 2015 to 2016 has gone up 61%. That's incredible. To do some comparison, Chicago to other bigger cities, Chicago right now has 25 murders, gun violent murders per 100,000 citizens there. Wow. Philadelphia is 14. New York is only 2.3. Okay, so that'll just give you an example of comparison these big cities. Okay, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York. You would think that they were similar, or at least more similar than these numbers reflect, but they aren't.
And, one thing that these cities really care about that we find a commonality is the tourism aspect. New Orleans, of course, known for its tourism, and Chicago is known for being touristy as well. And as a matter of fact, Mayor Rahm Emanuel has come under fire for a lot of the money that he has put forth in more popular tourist areas as opposed to in some of these areas that needed the most. As a matter of fact, he got criticism because basically he attended an event on Sunday that announced $10 million in city upgrades to the downtown Riverwalk. Now, one of the people that is running against him. He's got 10 candidates running against him.
Yeah.
Calls him wasteful Rahm. And he says, look, have you ever even been on the south or the west side of Chicago? He said $10 million would be a tremendous help to residents, especially children that live in poverty from these neighborhoods. Instead, Rahm Emanuel wants to waste more on an already perfect downtown attraction.
Yeah,
it's all about making the places that are already beautiful look
more
good
beautiful.
and putting them in the spotlight and leaving the other unfortunate people behind.
Yeah. Well, it's like a lady that has a really nice purse but cheap shoes. Okay. Unless you look down, you don't see the cheap shoes. The purse is in your field of vision when you see him, or when you see her, rather. And you mentioned New Orleans. New Orleans is another one of those cities, been run by Democrats for a long time, and they've got big shooting weekends. They had one weekend in February, 21 people shot. Yeah. They had 19 people injured at a Mother's Day shooting. Okay, these are staggering numbers, and I tell you the bad part about this, at least for the Democrats, and we always rag people that politicize everything.
Yeah.
Okay, but sometimes you got to bring politics into it because it's very reflective. Okay, so of the 10 most violent cities in the country, 8 are run by Democrats.
I'm surprised it's not all 10.
Yeah, well, Democrat mayors and city councils. Birmingham, Detroit, and St. Louis have all been run by Democrats for decades, and those are the three most violent, and they have been under Democratic control for over half a century.
So New Orleans has been under Democratic control since the 1870s, and Chicago since the 1920s. And I mean, no other party has ruled during that time. It has only been Democrats. And what's interesting is, and I don't like when people use tragedy to play politics. And Rudy Giuliani, whenever he put the tweet out this weekend saying, "Hey, all these killings happened under Mayor Rahm Emanuel. It's under Democrat rule," and he basically used it to politicize that. But what people don't realize is he actually went and promoted another Democrat that's in the race. Because what happens a lot of times in these cities, and you saw it in New Orleans as well, is that you have all these Democrats running because that's how you get elected if you're in the Democrat Party.
Yes.
But some of them are a little bit more moderate, are not as liberal as others.
Yes.
And so what happens is, if you're going to promote someone and you're on the conservative side, you got to find someone who's not as bad as some of the other ones.
The least liberal of the liberals.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, I respect him for that. Okay, I respect him for not drawing a line in the sand and saying there's no way I'll support a Democrat. You'd be hard pressed finding any Democrat that'll do that in the other way around.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though they have no chance of winning.
Good point.
You will never find a Democrat that is going to support a Republican under any circumstance.
232-1542. We head to the Cajun Harley Hotline for the first time today. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to point out how backwards those guys are over there. They'll use this stuff to take away law-abiding citizens' guns. But the thing of it is that the telling tale is that these guys will even find a silver lining in this chaos. They'll tout that only 10% of the people die. Or you'll have some crazy person on the left that'll literally say that, it's not quite 10%. Like it doesn't even matter that 400 people got shot. But it's all criminals that are doing it. So I guess if I was like a crazy centrist, I would say that maybe like open up a Barney's indoor range over there so they can practice and get better to raise the 10%. I don't know where to go from here.
I don't know. Hey. But you're right. They will find a way to twist the information to benefit their agenda no matter what. I can imagine them saying, well, you see, only 10% were murdered because we've got such great hospitals.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Look, we've got such great hospitals over here. So look at what a great city we are. It's not that these people. It's not the shooting victim. It's that we've got really good hospitals.
And here's the other thing that some of these politicians will do sometimes is they'll not only twist it, but they'll also put the blame somewhere else. I saw a headline that popped up where Mayor Emanuel and the police superintendent tells neighborhoods to, quote, step up after another bloody weekend. Yeah. Now, I understand that they want people to basically go and help the police out, give them information on these gang members that are committing these crimes.
You can't.
But that is much easier said than done.
Yeah.
These people are afraid for their lives.
Oh yeah, they can't do it. When you live in these poverty-stricken areas, the gangs rule. That's it.
Yeah.
The only way that you're going to overtake the gangs is to put a lot more police in there all the time, and the police have got to be aggressive. And now that's going to draw a lot of problems because everybody's going to be talking about their civil rights and whether or not they should. You got to bring back stop and frisk in areas like this. It's the only way that you're going to get control of the situation. But you can't put it on the citizens.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't pass the buck and say, "Well, y'all got to step up and do more to protect your own community by giving us the information." No, you won't survive that.
Yeah, exactly. 232-1542. It's such a slap in the face to the citizens because they're already having to be on the ground dealing with this. Then they got to accept blame for it as well.
Yeah.
Come on. 232-1542. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
I think we would all agree that this is a horrendous problem in all these cities in the nation. And I think we'd all agree also that you won't solve a problem until you properly define the cause of it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the cause, the main cause, would you two guys say is this problem, the main cause?
Gun control.
I would say is the destruction of the family in America. And we are doing absolutely nothing to fix that problem. Matter of fact, our government is doing things to actually make that problem worse.
So let me ask you this, though, caller. Since we're talking about solutions, how can government go about fixing the problem with the family situation?
When we create societies where we actually promote illegitimacy and we pay children to have other children, we are actually creating a problem that's worse than it. That's how it got here.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point, caller, and I think that you can't deny that there's some validity to your opinion. I would at least suggest that I don't want to say that doesn't matter, okay, because it certainly does matter. But the point that I want to make is that to correct a problem like you're describing takes generations. All right. This is a problem that needs immediate attention right now. The broken family unit here in our country has taken place over a period of generations. And if it ever has a chance of getting back to the way it was, that will take more generations. These cities are overrun with crime right now, and they need immediate action.
And I agree. And I would say we're dealing with lawlessness. So the only solution right now is the law, and we need to send more of the law in there. And of course, as you said, that's going to cause problems of its own. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. I tell you, when you mentioned Giuliani earlier, okay, when Giuliani took over in New York, what he did in Times Square, you couldn't get away with now. Yeah. All right, but Times Square was a cesspool. It was disgusting. It was nothing but crime. It was overridden with pornographic businesses. It was just a mess. And Giuliani said, we are going to clean this up. But that was before smartphones. That was before video cameras. And the cops went in there and just ran everybody out. Yeah. And they were very aggressive. It would be very hard to do something like that nowadays because everybody's recording everything and everybody knows their rights. And that's a good thing. But these areas, they just don't need police. They need aggressive police because these gangs, they play by a different set of rules. Oh, they do. And I'll say this. Look, we just talked about Rudy Giuliani in New York. New York, a lot of their problems have been really stemming with some of the social issues. But if you look at, the fact that they've had certainly a more diverse group of mayors when it comes to political affiliation, they don't have as bad of a problem as places like Chicago and New Orleans that are so run by one party. I realize that, and you're absolutely right. It goes to my point exactly. Yes, exactly. They used to. Okay, they used to have that problem, and they were just as bad, if not worse. Yeah. Okay, Giuliani went in there and said, "I don't care if y'all think like this. I don't care if you like it or not. You go ahead and file lawsuits all day long. Run all of these guys out of here." Yeah, they got a break from some of the bad ruling that was going on because now they're back to some of the worst mayors in New York right now. It's terrible. Yeah, 232-1542. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I agree with the last caller. But I do. I want to say, I met Ben Carson and was actually for him until I got on the Trump train. And I met Ben Carson in New Orleans during his campaign rallies. And one thing that I liked about him was that, he talked about his own life story, getting out of poverty. And, he wanted to help black people get themselves out of poverty, provide a ladder, whether it's through government or whatever, provide a ladder, not give them handouts to where they just stay where they are. Because that's the problem. That's what's been going on for the last 40 years is they've become slaves to the government. And he wanted to provide them with a way for them to rise themselves up out of poverty. And you say, well, we need a solution right now, that it can't happen over the long term. But, if I can respectfully disagree a little bit with that, I would say it took a lot of time for them to get into this situation. It's going to take a lot of time for.
Oh yeah, I agree.
First, and
yeah. What my point was I was referring to the prior caller's opinion about the family being broken, and what I was suggesting was that it could take generations for something like that, for us to see results from us restoring the family unit, if it's even doable.
But, because this is not just caused by one thing. I mean, there are main things that cause this. There are multiple steps that can be taken. There are some steps that can be taken now to address it on a more short-term issue, and then steps that can be taken on a more long-term issue. A short-term issue step could be the fact that the police force, one thing that they talked about, one of the criticisms coming at Rahm Emanuel, is that through attrition, he's allowed the police force to go down to lower numbers. So that means less police are are out there fighting against crime. Now, boy, I wouldn't want to be a policeman in the city of Chicago. I mean, how can you get more policemen in there right now? It's going to be tough.
You can't. I think that you need to bring in a military force in these really bad areas. I mean, look, when you got 66 people being shot in one weekend, all right, those numbers are so staggering. And I think that one of the patterns also that needs to be identified is that a lot of these cities that are overrun with crime have very strict gun control, all right? And those are the cities where the criminals know they have the upper hand because it's easier for them to get guns than it is for citizens. I have some statistics about that I'll share with you as soon as we get back.
All right, we'll take this quick commercial break. We will be right back here on Offsides.
Welcome back to Offsides, everybody. Shannon Wilkerson, Brandon Comeaux, 232-1542, the Cajun Harley Hotline. We're talking about gun violence and violence in general in big cities that are run by Democrats. Most specifically, we've been talking about Chicago and how now the citizens of Chicago are starting to turn on the mayor. They want results. One of the things that I mentioned before the break is about how crime actually nationwide has gone down significantly since the 70s. But one of the things that I found very interesting is that in 1993, just going back to 1993, there were 7 firearm-related homicides for every 100,000 people in America, all right? By 2016, that had fallen to 3.6, almost 50% down.
Wow.
But here's the correlation, all right? In 1993, there were 185 million firearms owned by people in the country. By 2016, 357 million. And so the reason I'm going to bring that up is that there are some statistics and studies that show that the more firearms that citizens have in specific areas, the crime goes down.
Well, yeah, obviously, because if criminals are worried that they're going to get some kind of a blowback and it's going to be harder for them to complete what they're trying to do, then they're going to hesitate. Criminals want it to be easy. That's why police officers all the time say, people, lock your car doors, because if there's any kind of a hesitation, most of the time, not every time, but most of the time, the criminals will just move along. If you keep your place well lit, criminals will usually move along.
Big dogs.
Big dogs.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
But, criminals don't want to break into a house that has a big dog in it barking. The house right next door has fish.
Yeah. So you got to make it a little bit more difficult on them. And that's what happens. If you know that people are armed and they're responsible gun owners inside their home to protect themselves, well, criminals are going to be less likely to mess with them than they will others.
And what a coincidence. In Chicago, where they have stricter gun laws, the crime is continuing to go up, completely out of control.
232-1542. We head to the Cajun Harley Hotline. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah,
having a lot of problems in Chicago. They don't have a lot of taxpayers left in town.
Well, be honest with you, sir. I can barely understand you.
Can't hear you very well, sir.
There's a lot of rain, it sounds like, going on in the background. Let's try this one more time. Go ahead.
I'm driving in the rain right now.
Yeah, okay. Well, you sound better now. Go ahead.
Yes, they're falling short on taxpayers that are staying in the city. The people that are left in the inner city, they're, subject to all this violence. And I like the point that the man, said about the family. It's the mothers and the fathers need to keep their kids at home and keep their kids in school and account for their time. Kids fall into these gangs and the street violence behind not having a good home figure going on.
Yeah, I agree completely. You take a young man. I remember having an argument with one of my students, co-students, right, in a classroom setting right there at UL. And this student was in the military, and she actually was making the argument that everybody has got a chance to make it in the country simply because you can go to the military. All right, that was her point. You can go to the military. But that's not necessarily true, especially in these types of environments. You take a young boy that's growing up in these bad areas in Chicago. The only role models that they have are gang members, right? They are selling and doing drugs as children. Yeah. By the time they are 14 or 15 years old, they may have been arrested 15 or 20 times. Yeah. All right. They won't make it in the military. The military won't even accept them in many cases.
That's a good point.
And so the military is not always a practical solution to young people being able to get a college education and get out of poverty because they are set up for failure in the front end.
232-1542. We go back to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you.
Hey, you guys are really, really great. I want to thank y'all for the show. Y'all are really great. I listen every day.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Let me tell you, Brandon and I are very proud because the recent ratings reflect that. Well, go on.
Well,
I'm bragging a little bit, but that's okay.
Y'all are really fantastic. The media. I don't know if this is covered. I've been listening to you for most of the show, but not all. The media does not cover the murders in Chicago. They never say anything. I mean, this past weekend, it came out that there was 71 shootings and 12 murders, and that was unacceptable. Well, what's acceptable?
Yeah, I would make this argument, or at least make this point, that if these cities that have this incredible crime rates that are completely out of control were Republican run, the media would be covering it very aggressively.
And, when you brought that up, caller, when you talked about the unacceptable quote, that was one thing that I thought about when I saw basically Mayor Emanuel calling the outburst of violence unacceptable and saying that Chicago is a, quote, better city than how it's portrayed. All that is words to me. There's no action behind it. All it is words being used by a politician who's hoping that his words are going to be able to smooth things over with voters enough so that way he can get reelected. But there's no action behind it.
Yeah. And those words are just like what we were talking about before. The words that he is speaking are just like the work that he wants to do in the heavily populated area with tourists. Look how pretty everything is.
Exactly.
Okay? Look how wonderful our city is. All you have to do is drive down Michigan Avenue. It's wonderful. But brother, let me tell you, you go 5 or 10 miles in the wrong direction, you're in trouble.
The media does not.
Oh, we lost
you.
Oh, sorry about that, sir. We lost you. 232-1542. The weather is getting worse outside, so it doesn't surprise me. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's Rahm Emanuel notorious for saying?
Don't let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
And by golly, if you don't have a crisis, create one.
Well, they've got a crisis on their hands, except now it's his crisis, and he wishes it would go to waste.
Thank you, caller.
I don't think he has that opinion about what's going on right now.
All right, 232-1542, back to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I think he said, don't let a good crisis go to waste. That's what his exact quote was.
Yes, he did.
Anyway,
Yes. We just said that.
In 1970s, New York was a horrible, horrible crime-ridden place. And I think that it takes the people, like the citizens of an area, to stand up and do what needs to be done. Wasn't there a group called the Guardian Angels
Yeah,
that came out of New York.
Yeah, and they would walk around with the candles and everything and the berets.
But they had the red berets on.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it may have been a coincidence, but I mean, if there's, it's people that do something like that. I'm not saying to get violent or anything.
You're not calling for vigilantism, is what you're saying.
We have to get together. If we're going to wait for the government to do something, we'll be waiting forever.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
I hear you. Thank you.
All right, let's take one more before we have to go to the break. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, me guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how y'all doing? Great show. Listen, I was up in Chicago. I was many years ago. My son graduated from the Great Lakes up there. So my wife and I went up, and, we were going to visit the spots and maybe go see, Wrigley and McKinney, the baseball fields and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And we started going to South Chicago, and we kind of got lost. So I stopped and actually parked right beside a cop. And I asked him, he said, well, you guys from around here? I said, no, sir, we're from Louisiana. And he said, what are you doing up here? And I explained. He said, well, look, my suggestion, you guys, you go down 2 blocks, take a left, get on the interstate, and go back north. He said, you don't want to be in the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, no, he's right. I was in Chicago one time, and I was there with an old friend of mine, and I wanted to go sightseeing, and it was at night, and just riding around, and I wanted to see the bad areas. I said, hey, I want to go see, the bad areas. I want to see the south side of Chicago. And, because of bad Leroy Brown, and you know what I mean? I just wanted to see it. I grew up, and I'm thinking, okay, I grew up in Orleans Parish. I can handle this, and it wasn't that late at night.
Yeah.
And my friend said, oh, no, we're not driving through there. I said, man, he said, you're crazy.
Yeah,
we're not going anywhere near there. And, I was crazy at the time. It was a long time ago.
But it's a shame that you can't go to a major American city, anywhere in it, and appreciate what the city has to offer. Every community has its specialness, There's probably even some parts of the Ninth Ward that were very special places to go. But, did you want to go down there? Hell no. But still, anyway.
Absolutely.
But it was
and growing up
that we had.
And growing up in the Orleans Parish area, I can tell you that when I think of these areas like Chicago, and we're talking about St. Louis and Detroit and all these enormous, huge cities that have these big areas, I imagine them and I parallel them to my growing up experience in Orleans Parish, near Orleans Parish,
right.
Just on a smaller scale. Okay. And so, but I'll tell you, just like that, except on a smaller scale, you go just a few miles in the wrong direction and you get a flat tire, you better ride on the rim. Okay.
Oh, exactly.
You better ride on the rim until you get someplace, and that's the rule. That's all there is to it.
Here's the big shame. Our nation's capital. You go outside the Beltway, and buddy, you better be ready because anything can happen. You go inside the Beltway where all the monuments and the big buildings and everything else are. Yeah, you're pretty protected. You're pretty safe. But you go outside that Beltway, and good luck.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
That's our nation's capital. Can you believe that?
Yes, I can.
Yep. Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
All right, before we go to our next break, Shannon and I want to tell you about this great company here in Lafayette called Red Royal House Buyers. Look, if you're facing any situation and selling your home fast would help you, then make sure you give them a call. They can close on your home at your convenience.
Yeah, here's some reasons why you should call and contact Red Royal House Buyers today. They'll buy your house as is with cash. No fees, no commission, and you won't have to make any repairs.
And look, most importantly, they will close on your timeline to meet your needs. You can speak with one of their experienced professionals who can answer all of your questions that you may have about the process.
That's right. So visit them online at redroyalhousebuyers.com. That's redroyalhousebuyers.com. You can follow them on Facebook or call 337-509-0040.
All right, as we go to the break, please be careful out there because it's like a monsoon outside the studio.
The rain's right going by sideways. If you were walking across the parking lot right now, one side of your body might get soaking wet and the other side would be dry.
Yeah, be careful out there.
One of you made a comment earlier about bringing the military in, and I agree with that. But here's the problem. It's been brought out that the media is part of the problem, and then you've got no one's really brought this up besides the gangs being there. I mean, there's got to be a strong mob push and influence there. So we can attack the gangs, but what are we going to do with the mob influence? Having said that,
hey, let me comment on that. There are a lot of people who believe that that if the mafia was still in control of things in these areas, they wouldn't have the crime.
Well, I think over the years it's really changed. You've got they used to have the mobs from, the Russian mob, the MS-13, the Vietnamese mob, and their ethics or their rules of the game, I think, really changed. But besides that, whatever approach that we would use and we would need to use, I'm just convinced that we don't have the public officials that have the will to affect any kind of change.
Yeah, you may be right.
Mm-hmm. Thank you,
good point. Thank you very much.
All right, 232-1542. We still got 1 minute left to the conversation. If you'd like to go ahead and get in with your comments as we talk about, look, the victims of these weekend shootings ranging in age from 11 to 63.
Yeah.
There's
no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, the only rhyme or reason is it's gang violence with each other. But, these homicides know no age barrier.
No, it doesn't matter. And it's crime and shootings just run amok. There's absolutely no control. And what surprises me is that in these cities, this isn't the first time this isn't some new problem. No. All right, this has been existing for a long time. The citizens just keep on voting the same way.
Yeah.
That's what I find so alarming.
I do too. And you know what's frustrating about this? There's been no arrests made yet in any of the weekend shootings. You had shootings that happened at a block party and a funeral.
Yeah.
It just... Yeah, and
how are you going to have 66 shootings and not make one arrest? No police.
I don't know, man. It just and it's like you said. I don't have much hope that they're going to make a change.
Oh no,
in party leadership.
I don't think so at all. I think it's just going to keep going more and more out of control, and the gangs are just going to rule in those areas. And that's all there is to it.
All right, we'll go ahead and take this break for the top of the hour news. Weather and traffic coming up as well. Please stay safe out there in this nasty weather. And then in the 5 o'clock hour, we got a brand new discussion lined up for you. You're listening to Offsides News Talk 96.5 KPL.
And welcome to Offsides. I'm Shannon Wilkerson here with Brandon Comeaux. Thanks for joining us for today's broadcast. We'll be with you until 6 o'clock. It is 5:09, rainy Tuesday afternoon. Hope everybody is being safe on their way home. Thank you for tuning in. And boy, we got a hot topic right now for 5 o'clock. We are expecting a lot of phone calls. People that want to participate, just give us a call, 232-1542, the Cajun Harley hotline. And Brandon, right now, this is really the first generation of parents with 24/7 access to phone calls, email, internet, Facebook, all different forms of social media. Mm-hmm. And now some pretty disturbing studies are coming out, not to my surprise or any other reasonable thinking person, that parents that are addicted to their cell phones are affecting their children's development. Yeah. Children are really being affected. Their development is being interfered with in its natural way because of the parents really being addicted to their cell phones. For example, moms on cell phones, and these are all studies. There's a lot of them out there now. A lot of different people are doing studies on this, and they're all very consistent with one another. Moms on cell phones have children that are more negative and less resilient. Research reported that children expressed more distress and were less likely to explore their environment when their mothers were using their phones. Children whose mothers reported greater habitual use of the mobile devices had more negativity, less emotional recovery. So this is a type of maternal withdrawal that children are experiencing now because the parents are really addicted to we talk a lot about young people being addicted to their cell phones. Middle-aged people, older people, parents are also addicted to their cell phones, and their children are paying a very high price for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But, so it's interesting. We'll spend some time talking about parents because, look, parents set the example as well. And so parents setting the example, the kids see that. And then also you have the situation where the time is being more devoted to technology than it is to the kids. And sometimes, we've always talked about how, iPads and other forms of technology can be used as kind of babysitters for
They're
these kids.
babysitters, yes.
But at the same time, if kids are trying to get the attention of their parents and their parents are constantly on the electronics, whether it's for play or for work reasons, well, sometimes some of these kids want to act out.
And they do, boy.
And they do. And it's causing some behavioral issues with this. It's causing sleep issues, attention deficit problems as well, as far as and also the physical ailments, the vision and eye health, neck, back, and other musculoskeletal problems because of poor posture.
Yes.
It's just, look, technology.
It goes on.
Oh, it really does.
It goes
we could keep going. I mean, look, technology, it's everywhere. You know, it's not going anywhere. It's only going to be more prevalent, but we've got to find a way to be able to balance it out.
Well, the parents need to put the phones down when they're around their kids.
Right.
You know, children feel unimportant, and they feel like they have to compete with smartphones and to get the parents' attention. Another study of 6,000 8 to 13-year-olds, 32% reported feeling unimportant when their parents use their cell phones during meals, conversations, or other family times. Children reported feeling like they are constantly competing with technology. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I remember seeing a report on this in a photograph of parents that were at a grade school, a grammar school, and they were standing around out front of the school, and it was the end of the school day, and all the children had come out of class, and these were parents that were there to pick up these kids. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking first or second graders. Right. And all of the parents are standing around staring at their phones, and their kids are all reaching up, grabbing at them, trying to show them a paper, trying to show them something they made in class, or just trying to get their attention. And all of the parents are just glued, addicted to the screen of their smartphone, completely oblivious to what was going on with their child right there at their feet.
232-1542. We open up the phone lines for you. We'd love to hear what you have to say about this topic. All right, caller, you're on the Cajun Harley Hotline. Go ahead.
Hey, fellas. How you doing today?
Good.
All right. Just a few things. Love the show.
Thank you.
But I believe that, and I've been saying this for 5-6 years now, ever since smartphones have been coming more popular every single day. I just think as a society, technology in general is just dumbing everybody down, brainwashing people. It's just, it's insane how stupid people have become since technology has become more prevalent. I almost hate to say it, but I mean, I love my cell phone, I love my games and stuff, but I feel like if you would just take technology back to the basics and use it for essentials, I almost feel like we'd be better off as a society because you had to use your brain a lot more. People can't even read maps nowadays. I mean, if the internet goes down, the whole world is going to turn into chaos. Nobody's going to know what to do. Nobody's going to have Google. Nobody knows how to look up something in an encyclopedia. Nobody goes to libraries anymore. Like, it's just ridiculous.
It is really, really bad. And it's bad on so many different fronts. The one that we're really focused on right now is the parenting aspect, because now, as Brandon said, parents set the standard. Mm-hmm. And so all these children now are growing up viewing their parents and viewing their parents' behavior and completely being ignored for hours on end by their parents, where a traditional family or family communication and interaction from the past, there would be conversation. There would be communication between the parents and the children all the time. Tell me about your day. Did you get a good grade? What kind of homework do you have? Are you going out to play? You know, basic communication. And the parents just cannot pull themselves away from the phone. It reminds me of what you're saying about dumbing down of society. It reminds me of a quote that is getting kind of famous on the internet right now from Einstein. Okay, and Einstein made a quote, and you're talking about a long time ago, before we had, all you had was a landline, one in each house, maybe. And Einstein made this quote where he said, "I fear the future, we will have nothing but idiots that are staring at their electronic devices." And so he foresaw this in the future, because it was clear to these people that were more advanced scientifically of where we were going to be going technologically and how it could affect us socially.
Thank you, caller. All right, 232-1542, 232-1542. You left him speechless, Shannon.
I'm sorry.
All right. Well, one thing we would love to hear from when you call as well, we'd love to hear, obviously we're talking about the issue at hand, but we'd also love to hear from some parents that have successfully implemented some I guess rules, some ways about how they deal with this technology and how it works for them.
Yeah, I'd also like to hear from parents that will confess to being guilty of this behavior.
Yeah, 232-1542.
You don't have to give your name.
Yeah. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
You got me?
Yes, sir. PC.
Hey, what's up, PC?
Man, y'all got me there. I'm telling them what's happening today because it definitely ain't no parents no more. Y'all keep saying parents went out in 81 when we went there. Because the first thing you're supposed to do, make sure that you get in trouble, or the first thing supposed to run this world, if you get in trouble, you just say God or the police. Once you took that out, you took everything out. Let these senators and the governor running it. You got 3,000 laws on the book, and if you don't get the law to know people, the sheriff department want to be state trooper, the state trooper want to work the city. We need to get the law back in and know one another. We used to know what bank robbers at. You don't just go rob a man, go just because he did something, bringing him in. All they want to do now is write stickers and stuff. We need to get out there and know the people, and we need to get together, and the people need to know the law. If we get back to being what we was in 81, we'll have a good society. As long as we got the people running and the police not doing their job, this country's going to the dog.
All right,
Thank you, PC.
Thank you, PC. Thank you.
It always comes back to the police.
Maybe he's trying. Maybe he thinks that the police need to take away the parent's cell phone.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you on the air. Go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, from being a parent and a grandparent.
Yes, ma'am.
I see today that the little ones aren't even talking at the ages of, 1 and 2 year olds, where you kind of start, saying words and stuff like that. They're not talking.
So you're saying that the electronics are stunning their growth?
They could carry on conversations.
That's very true. I had a conversation with a friend of mine recently whose child is about 8 years old, and they were bragging about how the child was funny and would come up with these, just silly behavior and was very creative. And I explained to him, you have you're very lucky. You've got a very unique child because the technology is really stunting their ability to develop any creativity. And you're right. A lot of parents now become very worried that their children may have special needs when they're at a young age because they're not talking. They're not starting to develop those communication skills at the right age. And in many cases, it's the parent's fault because the parent isn't communicating with the child as an infant and as a toddler, and because they're sitting there staring at their phone.
Yeah, I see it all the time. You'll see, at the store, in, doctor's office, anywhere. Parents aren't paying any attention to the kid, and actually, most of the kids have their own phone too.
Yes, they
do.
And
they're all playing games, and nobody communicates with each other, verbally with each other face to face.
Yep. Thanks for the call.
Thank you,
point.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take this quick commercial break. When we come back, more of your calls as we talk about cell phones and how parents who are addicted to them are affecting their children's development. We'll be right back. And welcome back into Offsides. Again, weather, the storm system making its way through Lafayette. Please be careful and be patient as you're on your way home. So we've been talking about parents who are addicted to their cell phones and how it's affecting their children's development. And, of course, one of the methods that, people that work in this field that deal with families often recommend to say, hey, look, you got to spend some time with your kids outside. Get them doing some of, the things that we used to do growing up as kids, Shannon. And over the weekend.
Outside. Good Lord.
I know. And look, over the weekend, getting to go to KOA and seeing a lot. It was really nice to see a lot of families out there where you had kids riding bikes. You had kids, going canoeing or kayaking with their parents. That was really, it kind of felt like a throwback.
Yeah, it's unusual.
See all the families enjoying nature.
Let me tell you a very staggering statistic that I recently read about. the average child now spends less time outdoors than a prisoner that is in solitary confinement.
Ooh.
A prisoner that is in solitary confinement on a weekly total spends more time outdoors than our children do. They're allowed an average of 1 hour to 90 minutes a day in what they call a yard.
Yeah.
All right. And it's a outdoor area that's got concrete walls. All right. And they let the prisoner out there. They spend more time outdoors than children do.
Wow.
Think about that grabbed me right there. Okay, let's go to the phone lines.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey.
Yeah, I do like this topic a lot. I think it is a good one. And just on that little side note, talking about outside, I got a 16-year-old son, and I got him a bow and arrow, and bow and some arrows, and made a cardboard target, and he's outside all the time on that. He loves it, you know? It's great. And I remember having one when I was a kid, you know?
Yeah, I did too. I think that once they break that mold, okay, and they get away from the technology, you don't have to encourage them to go out there. They're going to want to go out there.
Yeah. And then the other thing, getting back to the question that you posed before about what parents can do, is that I have a very strict rule at our house. We don't even we don't do any of that. I have a record player. I'll even let them pick out a record. And we sit down at the table. We talk about each other's day. And I always like to ask them, because kids always can answer this one thing, this one question. They love it. What was the best part of your day? You don't always have an answer. It could be lunch. It could be meeting somebody. It could be something, you know. And we sit there. We eat all of our dinner. Nobody's allowed to get up. And then after that, we usually, I know it's old school, but we play Mad Libs. And at first they didn't like it, but now they get excited and they want to read them, you know, because they're a little bit older. And then we all laugh, and then they can go back to doing what they do.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds wonderful. It sounds normal. I remember a similar scenario when I grew up. You know, we would all gather everybody had to be present for us to have dinner. All right. And so if one of my brothers was running late or whatever, we waited. And so we had dinner together every single night. Every night, you can't come to the dinner table until you washed your hands. You couldn't start eating until we said grace. Okay. And that gave a formality to it. All right. And so it got you in a certain state of mind, I guess. And then my mom would question every one of us, just like you just described. You had to have some answers. What did you do today? What did you learn in this class? I hated every minute of it. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I hated every minute of it as a child, but now looking back on it, I see the significance of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just telling you the funny stuff, but those come first, and then I move to better stuff at the end. So I don't leave a sour taste in their mouth. But yeah, that's one thing that I always have done. And if we're shopping or going around town, no phones, because I want to talk to you, and you're going to answer me. And long trips, yeah, that's different. But you were just asking that question. That's just the way that I've done it, and they've gotten used to it.
Good for you. Good.
Well, that's what we wanted, because look, I mean, some of you, like this guy, a very experienced parent. He and his wife obviously in the groove of what they're doing.
Yeah.
But some of our listeners are, I'm sure, new parents. You know, some of us are going to be parents one day. And so, you know, we'd love to hear from people that are, you know, being successful with their children.
You know, they all want to do it. All right. You're not going to find anybody that says, no, I intentionally do not want to be a good parent because I'm staring at my cell phone.
Of course.
I think that a lot of it is work related. And I said, but as I mentioned before, this is the first generation of parents that are now exposed to 24-hour emails, text messages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these different forms of social communication right there in their hand.
It's harder to just leave it at the office now than it used to be.
Oh, it's impossible. You get in trouble. You might lose your job.
Yeah, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Guys, I'm real glad you guys brought up this subject. I'm a parent again after a 20-year gap. And watching kids nowadays and how the internet really inspires this group think, you know, and you can only behave a certain way and think a certain thing, and all these other ideas are forbidden and, you know, politically or any information. I've decided we're just all going back to dumb phones. I mean, you know, we need a certain level of communication, but guess what? we've got computers, we can email, we can watch TV like we used to, but looking at my son, how he grew up without instant communication, and how my daughter's growing up, it's really scary. It's like something out of 1984. People don't talk to each other like they used to, and people aren't becoming families. And you know what? I think there's a certain power that likes this separation and the breakdown of family. It gives them more control to, get more out of their people. I don't know. It's pretty sick.
It's a mess.
Thanks, guys.
You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, 232-1542. Back to the Cajun Harley Hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey, guys, years ago, like you're talking, mothers were home. Mothers are always home. Nowadays, the mothers aren't home. They have to work. They have to stay out late. So what the kids have to do? Nothing. They stay on the phone. Heck, my mother didn't start working until I was almost 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, she knew where I was, and she knew what I needed to do. On Saturday, there was no playing on a phone or watch TV. It was outside. You better get outside, or she's going to have a stick on you.
Yeah. It was work. No, Saturday was work. That's when everybody would gather together and cut grass or any of the repairs or maintenance or chores that you needed to do around the house. At least the first half, up until lunchtime on Saturday mornings. Don't make any plans, son. Okay? I got a long list of things that you're going to do, and you will do them. And so that was, but the thing is that you were doing that all together. We were all miserable together. And so, it wasn't that bad because I could look at my brothers and I saw that they were also miserable. But like I said, looking back on it, I'm so glad that happened. And I'm saying I'm joking about it being miserable because look, it's hot outside. When you're 12 years old, you don't want to be out there cutting grass. No. You don't want to. You want to sit around and play video games. That's what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And now what's happening is that more and more children are being raised in that environment of just technology. And most of the time, like we're saying now, it's because the parents are the ones that are doing it.
Hey, guys, listen. There was only 2 hours on a Saturday that we were inside. That was to watch Soul Train and Mid-South Wrestling. My dad and them stopped. After that, you were working the whole Saturday.
That's it. Thanks for the call,
Thank you,
man.
caller.
All right, we'll be right back here on Offsides. Y'all stay tuned. Keep your calls coming in.